Welcome to the Leva podcast, where we cover all things related to being a happy and successful woman, mother, and professional. We have a special guest today that knows what it's like to be a kick-butt mom and professional in so many ways, and her name is Ann Valdivia. She currently serves as a senior IP counsel at USAA, where she works with entrepreneurs and inventors to help secure patents for them and for USAA. I actually know Ann because she and I worked at USAA together for a period of time when I was working in new product development. And yes, she helped my coworkers and I get a patent for a really cool piece of software. On top of being an impressive, successful lawyer, that is so cool, she's also creative and fun. In this episode, we're going to cover Ann's career, her experience becoming a mom, and how she's balanced work and her career, and what her passions are outside of her family and work. So we'll get started. Ann, thank you so much for joining us today. It's so exciting to have you. Finally, we've been trying to do this for a while, but
I know, it's so great to see you.
Let's dive into your background. You had a super cool career. And what is that like? How did you get into patent law?
So I was originally an engineer out of college. I was an aerospace engineer, and I actually did that for 4 years. It was awesome. And but unfortunately at the time, which was the mid to late 90s, the industry was drying up, the work was drying up, and layoffs were happening, contracts were drying up, and I had to figure out something else to do.
Yeah.
Just really law school kind of came out of nowhere. But I gave it a shot, and I turned out I really, really loved it. I mean, I loved it. And I had never heard of intellectual property law until someone at law school said, with your engineering background, you should consider that. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. So they described to me what it was. And ironically, I actually knew some young associates at the time that were practicing. I was going to Seton Hall up in New Jersey. So I was living in northern New Jersey. And I had a friend that was working for a small boutique in New York City who offered me a summer position, my first summer out of law school, and got that experience. And here I am, 20 plus years later, still doing it, not just patents, right? Trademarks, copyrights, like the whole gamut. We do it all here. And I do very much enjoy it. I'm still very much a geek at heart. I'm very much a nerd. I love space. I love planes. I can totally geek out about them. So I really enjoy working with inventors and with entrepreneurial people, right? And very spirited people, very passionate people about wanting to innovate for our members. It's a real reward. It has its challenges as well. Let's be real. I have plenty of venting, but I really do it deep down.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That is so cool. I literally had no idea that you were an aerospace engineer. That is amazing. And it also makes so much sense to your point about like how you understand the actual like technology underlying the solutions that are being put out there. I knew you were smart. I just didn't realize like, oh, you also had formal training in this stuff. That's so cool. And I also love like all things airplanes, but obviously from a different angle. I worked at a couple different airlines way back in the early days. It's so neat. Oh gosh, that's cool. How did you end up at USAA? Like you've been there for a long time. Tell us about that.
August will be 10 years for me. It's the longest I've been anywhere. I'm originally from Texas. So the opportunity kind of came up when I was working up north. I was in-house at an optical fiber company. It was a good first in-house position. It didn't have a lot of growth though. And I actually have family that work here. Oh, and my cousin reached out to me and said, hey, they're hiring for patent attorneys. And I had always wanted to move my family back to Texas. So submitted my resume and here I am.
Where are you from in Texas? Just curious.
Houston.
Okay, awesome. That's where my grandmother lived my entire life. So what are some of the career highlights that you've had at USAA?
So USAA is a financial services company that provides primarily insurance and banking services for military members and their families. We've been around since 1922. We just celebrated 100 years last year. It was an amazing feat and accomplishment. We unearthed a time capsule that had been buried 50 years prior, and we just buried another one, which was really cool. We've been through our ups and downs. We're always going through some ups and downs, but the company was founded by military members who back in 1922 could not obtain car insurance for themselves, automobile insurance for themselves, because they were constantly being moved due to their military lifestyle. And so they pulled their money together and created their own company. And 101 years later, 101 years next month, June, here we are thriving with, I think 37,000 employees. Yeah, we're huge. And it's still a privately owned company. We're owned by our members constantly. The mission, we have a mission. The mission is always to provide the best products and services that we can for our members and their families. It's been a whirlwind here. I've definitely been able to grow my own skill set, which has been phenomenal, right? Prior to this role, I really had only had experience primarily with patents. I'd had some trademark experience. So definitely one of my wins is being able to grow and expand my role here to cross many, many fields in intellectual property, which is great for me. I was able to obtain my executive LLM through Baylor with the assistance of USAA's education assistance. So that was absolutely wonderful, and the support of my team. I have a really, really, really good team. We're a very dysfunctional family, but we love and care about each other very, very deeply. And, at times, I don't know, it's interesting. I've worked for a public company. Now I work for a private company. That's always fantastic. And that's all I can say about that. I support my teammates who are more and more direct into that. But I get to go to one of the trials, and that was, truly fascinating to watch and be a part of. But I very much enjoy focusing on the members, and that this is member owned as opposed to shareholder owned and stock. So that can honestly make a difference. When I'm pulling my hair out, when I'm, questioning why I'm going stir crazy for whatever it is I'm doing, I really do sit back and I'm like, it's for the members, it's for the members, it's for the members. Our members are out there doing amazing things, putting their life on the line all the time, their families too, right? The spouses, the children, that really puts things into perspective.
Fantastic. I love it. So in your experience, I have two other questions, maybe specific to USAA. In your experience on the highlight side, what is one of, or if you have more than one, some of the cool new ideas that you've gotten to work on?
It's hard because a lot of times our patent portfolio has grown substantially. We filed our first patent in 2002. Our first patent was issued in 2005. And
the first one was 2002?
Yeah, it's actually a very young team. It's a very young portfolio.
Yeah, you think about 100 years in business. Wow.
Yeah. So by 2010, I want to say the portfolio was still small. It was only about 70. We're now over, we're in 2023, we're over 2,100 issued patents. So we've very much ramped up, right? The innovation, the capturing of that innovation. There's always been a culture, I should say, since putting that together, a culture of innovation. Innovation is supported. I think if you remember General Joe Robles, who was CEO when I came here, I know everyone loved him. A huge supporter of innovation. And so we provide rewards to our inventors, and working with them, we get invention submissions all year long. We have guided innovation sessions. We're constantly trying to work with people to capture the innovation. And it was an idea that we did get, issued patents on, was a faceless ATM. An ATM machine, it was actually relatively small, where using near-field technology, you could use the mobile app to set up how much money you wanted cash you either wanted to pull out or submit, and you would just simply wave it and it would happen. So there would be no need for debit card, which would certainly reduce fraud and any sort of security concerns. These are issued patents, so I'm not sharing any confidential information, but some of the things shared or disclosed or captured in that patent talked about crowdsourcing these ATMs, so you could have them in different places, and the app would tell you, like, look, we know you're close to ATM A over here, but ATM B, which is just a little bit further, could really use some cash. So, if you'll drive an extra couple miles to ATMB to make your deposit, we'll give you some sort of incentive, something like that. So ideas like that, right? Ideas like that. Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
I hope that happens as a USAA member still.
Right.
Okay. By the way, so we're on this really epic road trip right now. We're in Northeast Nevada today, and so we've been driving from Kansas City all through like this really cool area of the United States I've never seen. It's really neat.
Awesome. The big road
On the
trip.
way, we saw one of the old. I can't remember where it was. I have a picture of it, but we saw one of the old USAA financial centers, and they had yes, and I felt, speaking of time capsules, I felt like I was in a time machine going back to the past because it had the date. It was like 2017. When did that all shut down? Anyway, it had the date on there of like closed by this date, but there were like USA ATMs there too. So we ended up going and withdrawing money because we're like, well, we're here. It was really neat to see. And it's such a beautiful town and a very well area, so they did a good job. It's such a cool, it's just cool to see those things. But yeah the ATM thing, if you remember that.
It's like seeing a public phone booth. You're like, oh
my gosh, yes, the financial centers. I love that example, by the way. That is just so cool. I totally want to use that. I hope that it ends up coming out. Okay, let me ask you one more question, then I'll move on to the next one. Sorry, I just find this so interesting. When you think about the value that having a patent portfolio brings to a company, what would you say, what makes that important? Because a lot of folks, again, I don't know that well. I have ideas, but I'm sure there are other people that even don't understand as well as I do. So you're the expert. Can you tell us?
I mean, every company has innovation, right? And it's business decision whether you want to invest resources and time and money into capturing that and obtaining those intangible assets or not. What's very interesting is over the last 20 years, the percentage of intangible property, intellectual property, has risen exponentially on the S&P 500. So it's now, I want to say, at the 90 or 95%, and I can get you information on that. Whereas 25 years ago, it was less than 50%, right? So companies are recognizing that there is value in its innovation and its creativity. When you think and look at acquisitions, right? Big acquisitions, it's a lot of times and very often, it's the billions of dollars spent to capture that innovation, because that innovation is a monopoly, right? It's government granted monopolies on those property rights. And you can enforce those rights. You can kind of put up a wall with those rights, a little bit of a defense, right? Like, we won't come after you, but don't come after us. Let's just all go to market and see what happens. So the growth and expansion of recognizing that intellectual property beyond patents, branding, right? Copyright. Ed Sheeran just won lawsuit against him by Marvin Gaye's daughter, who had claimed that Ed Sheeran had copied one of, a portion of Marvin Gaye's song to create one of his songs, right? Huge copyright infringement suit. Those things still continue to happen all the time. Trademark and branding. And now we're moving into artificial intelligence and machine learning and ChatGPT, copyright infringement and copyright questions, the metaverse and branding within the metaverse and trademark infringement. Like, it all still expands into the new trailblazing areas, right? That humanity is moving forward. So it doesn't go away. So that's kind of cool for me. I mean, job security aside, really cool for me to think, okay, it doesn't just stop here, right? As science expands, as technology moves forward, as the world moves forward, these issues still crop up and they morph into something new, but they're still the same intangible asset issues. So, which is really cool.
That is so cool. Yeah, it's awesome to think about that. And that whole ChatGPT thing, which is incredibly helpful. I use it a lot. It's the Wild West. And it really, where we are with AI, it is kind of like the next industrial revolution, like we don't even know what's going to happen 2 years from now. I don't even want to say 5, because 2 years from now, we don't even know what the world's going to look like.
I know.
It'll be materially different,
Very.
That is exciting. Okay. Now, we know that no matter where you work, sometimes there are rough patches and you have to like figure out ways to get through them. And I think a lot of our listeners are corporate women / executive women / new moms that are also doing the work-life balance deal. Is there any particular moment in your career that was challenging and you found a way through it?
So I thought long and hard about this. And I was actually really hesitant to do this podcast. I have a lot of mom guilt. So I have 2 boys, they're 15 and 19. And like I said, I graduated in 2002. So before I had children. And when I look back, and I love my work. I mean, if you want to label me, if someone label me a workaholic, it is what it is. It's part of who I am. But of course I love my children, right? My boys are my world. But I look back at when they were younger and the struggles I had as a young mom raising them. And it was it was extremely difficult. It was extremely difficult. And it is so very different today. There's so much more support for women, corporate women, for female lawyers, whether you are a family woman or not. I mean, even when I started here, hybrid working was not a thing.
Yeah.
And when I first moved down here, it was hard. And there was a time where my ex-husband, we were still married at the time, was still living up north, but my kids had moved down here with me. And it was a struggle. It was a lot of change for them. They were little. This is 2014. So they were young. And I was at a new job. And I was trying to still establish myself here and take care of them as a, quote unquote, single parent, while my ex was still working up north and getting the house for sale and doing the things that he needed to do up there. And it was a god awful year. I'm not going to lie. And I'm so thankful that I had a very understanding team. I had a very understanding boss at the time. I say that because my boss now is different. She's absolutely fantastic and would completely understand as well. But now we have the flexibility that we didn't have back then.
Yeah.
There was no work from home. There was no part-time work. There was no understanding, or just there was so much less support of family needs, right? And FaceTime was important, and being in the office was important. And thank God I had an understanding boss, because in the middle of the day, I would need to leave to go home and support my kids who were struggling.
Yeah.
And my boss was like, don't worry, go home. You can work from home. He worked with me. If I hadn't had that, Vanessa, I don't know what I would have done. But I back to when they were even younger, and I can remember, and I was working at a private practice, which again, at the time had even less support for working moms. It just wasn't the expectation, right? The expectation was you're going to be a lawyer. You got to be there, right? Family kind of comes second. And my ex was working too. So we were, 2 working parents. It was very, very difficult. And I can remember racing to the daycare to pick up my son. And I was already late. And I have just like the worst memories of that. And he's fine. He doesn't remember it. I would pick him up and I could see he was so tired because he had been there for like 10 years. I mean, at the age of, 2 or 3. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's just so difficult for a child. And I wish, and if I could have done anything differently, it would have been to not felt so obligated to be at the office as long as I did.
Yeah.
And said, and cut myself off and go home at this time and stand up for myself. And, if I lost my job, then I would have moved on to somewhere else. I wish I had taken more of a stance, because I missed out on a lot of their life. And I don't know if that, impacted them or anything. They always tell me, they're fine and they don't remember, but I remember.
Yeah.
And as much as and as hard as I try to let it go, I don't think it's something I can ever let go. And it's so different, right? I mean, if I was just now having kids now, we have paternity leave here.
I know.
People, right? Like, it's just so vastly different.
Ann, there are so many companies, like even not to, I do think I was very fortunate to be at USAA when we had our baby, because he was born in July, and literally in July was when the new parental leave program kicked in. It was that same year. So we both got to have time with him when he was a baby, and there is still so many companies that don't have actual parental leave, let alone maternity leave, paternity leave. Like, they don't even support
And I
the
mean,
baby.
we have it for when parents adopt, right? Like, it's widespread. It supports all kinds of situations. It's absolutely fantastic. So, and those are the things I think about, that how fortunate I am to work here. When I get frustrated with something, I'm like, you know what? The benefits here are just absolutely outstanding compared to so many other places. If I have to come in 4 days a week now, all right, I'm going to do it. But I wish I had stood up for myself more. And I wish I had not made works as much of a priority as I did, regardless of whether I was supposed to or not.
Right.
Regardless of what others thought or the expectations, I feel like I didn't put my family first as much as I should have. That really eats away at me. And it's such a different world. So when I have interns or when I mentor, and the last several years we have summer interns here, and I tend to be their coach, and they've been female. I have these really open, deep conversations with them. And I'm like, look, this is a very demanding career.
Yeah.
The law is very demanding. It's client service. And when your clients need you, they need you, and they tend to need you right then and there.
Yeah.
Whether, regardless of whether no one's dying. And you have to make that decision of how you're going to respond, when you're going to respond, and at the same time, still give time to your family and what's important. You have so much more support now than we did before. You don't have to be racing to daycare. You can come in the morning and then pick your kid up at noon now, and then go work from home for the rest of the day. It's a vastly different world. And I think so much for the better. Not every place supports that, but a lot more places do than they used to.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. So when you're like coaching these young lawyers, what is your advice? I mean, is it just like find the balance, or what kind of information do you share?
I don't know if you've ever found a balance. I don't know if I've ever found a balance, to be honest. It's just more of, be your authentic self, be true to yourself, and don't be afraid to speak up, right? Don't be afraid of your voice. Follow your gut. And always when you're interviewing, if you're interviewing at a place and you sense that they would not support your family needs or your life needs, I don't care what the money is.
Yeah.
I don't care what they're offering you. Walk away. It is not worth it. Take a pay cut, do whatever for a place that's going to support you as you and your personal life, outside of work, right? Nobody wants, and I always say this, I'm like, look, I don't want on my tombstone, I don't want written like she was really responsive to emails. Nobody cares, right? And think about it, when company has layoffs or when they have to, let people go, right? It happens. It just happens at any time. We're at-will workers. We're out, right?
Absolutely.
You still have your personal life. You still have your family, right? What you got to really decide, like, what really counts.
I think that's awesome. Well said. And it's interesting because as a culture, we really put so much focus on that, like career being part of who we are, or like a very large part of who we are. In some cases, it is who we are, but to your point, it isn't. There's so much more. I realize we're out of time and you have a meeting, so I will wrap up. I feel like there's so much more I want to ask you, but I really appreciate you making time. I think
Let's do it again, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I knew I was going to break down. And that was one of the reasons why I was really hesitant to do this. It evokes such horrible. It brings up a lot of really tough stuff.
I'm sorry. I
wanted to do it. I wanted to do it for you.
You're the best. And you're not alone at all. Like, God, I can't even tell you. I swear, it's like I feel like doing this work that I'm doing. I talk to so many. Now I'm gonna get emotional. I hear so many stories from like new moms to experienced moms, and like all of the pain that and challenges they've dealt with trying to be successful, and that definition and whatever. And it's like, It's heartbreaking. And that's what we're doing. That's why we're doing what we're doing, is trying to make a difference, so that people can have a better options and hear your story and know that there are options,
And they're not alone, right? Like they're
not
not
alone.
struggling, and that sadly, some of the struggles still exist today.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if balance can ever be found. I don't like the word balance, to be honest. I think it puts too much pressure. I think it's almost just like a day by day kind of like what works.
Yeah.
And you can, I never missed a kid event that I can think of, right? Like I went to everything, was there for everything, but that doesn't mean that I was there for them enough in my mind. I know.
How are they now as teenagers? Is it like
they're teenagers. They're boys.
very independent?
My oldest just finished his first year of college. He did really well. I'm really proud of him. My younger one is wrapping up his sophomore year of high school. Their dad and I are still finalizing the divorce, so there's some tension there.
Yeah.
They live with their dad, so I don't even get to see them that often, which is another pain point. But I would never force them to spend time with me. And as teenagers, they don't want to hang out with their parents.
Yeah.
So, I see my little one. I pick him up, once or twice a week from school, and that's about as much time as I get from him. But they're good kids. They do well in school. They're not criminals. They're not drug users. They make smart decisions when it comes to the really important things. And I think one day my relationship with them will heal and get better.
For sure.
Have their own life experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like you're an awesome human being, obviously, and the fact that you're their mom, I have nephews that are a little older than it sounds like your sons are. And they definitely went through that. Like, we're rebellious. We're independent guys. We're doing our own thing. And now they're just like, they want their mom,
I hope so. I hope that, and that's why I give them I give them their space. I give them their freedom.
Yeah.
But we're just going through, a rough patch right now.
That's what life is, right?
Right.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry if I made you late for your next meeting, but I really appreciate you. All right, cool. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Ann. And don't forget to recommend Leva for the new moms in your life. We are available in the Google and Apple stores. We have holistic support that puts mom in the center of the experience, from tracking baby feeding and diapers to mental wellness, physical fitness, and every question you could have along the way. We've got your back. Check us out, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much.